And so today we're here in the 4th week of our 7-week fall program. Isn't that amazing? 4 weeks already, and we're calling this series Birth 2012, Co-Creating a Planetary Shift. That's what our series is being called. And we're studying Barbara Marx Hubbard's book, Emergence, the shift from ego to essence. So we're in the shift mode. And I can't believe it's already the halfway mark. Halfway through our 7-week series. Seems like it just began last week. But we've got spiritual connection groups meeting throughout the area during the week, studying this material. Lots of you doing it on your own. And we're emerging as young universal humans. And we're awakening something new within us. And several weeks ago when we first started this series, we started by entering the inner sanctuary. That was our first theme, entering the inner sanctuary, preparing a place of readiness in which we can awaken the beloved within us. And it's creating that space for something new to happen. And being in that inner sanctuary is a lot about what this whole series is. It's about the whole 7 weeks is taking us deeper into a meditation practice. And if you're reading the book and you're doing the practices and you're doing the journaling, by the end of the 7 weeks, you'll be in a very different place. And all of us will be in a different place. This church will be in a different place because it's made up of each one of us. And so as we do that work, as we enter that inner sanctuary, something new will happen. And then the 2nd week of our series, we spent the time welcoming the beloved, that aware of the true essential spiritual self of who we are, that the beloved, the Christ in unity we call it. And we invited it to come more fully, show up more fully within us. And we made a commitment to spending as much time as possible in the inner sanctuary contemplating the beloved. Because that's where it all happens, is within. And then last week we talked about accepting this new identity of who we are and starting the journey of coming home to ourselves, coming home to the beloved, coming in all the way as to who we are, as to who we really, really are. And so then today we're spending our time talking about union. And the theme today is uniting the human and the divine. And so that there's not two separate selves of us, there's only one. Barbara Marx Hubbard, in her book Emergence, she says, in this next step, for the first time, the beloved takes the initiative and invites the local selves, which last week we talked about, they represent ego or personality. But the beloved takes the initiative and invites the local selves to come up unto it. And we are freed in that instant from our illusion of separation from our essential self. It's an illusion, and we're freed of that. When our local selves, our ego, our personality comes up to the beloved, we're freed in that moment from our separation. And we experience the bliss of union with our essential divine self. And she goes on to say that when this happened, she said, I experienced a tremendous opening. An infusion of love comes in waves that flood both my heart and my solar plexus region. And what had been a somewhat flashing type of joy in the past was now more sustainable and intense. It felt like a sun was shining inside of me. I love that image. It felt like a sun was shining within me. And so we all know from a spiritual perspective that joy is not dependent or contingent upon what's happening around us, right? I hope you know that by now. But true joy, really true joy, is a decision that we make from within. From within. It doesn't matter what's going on around us. It's a decision in which, it's a choice in which we decide to live from a certain way of being. And we take that way of being into everything that we do, everywhere we go, because it is something that is so incredibly important to us. It's how we choose to live our lives. And joy is a choice. We can choose to live in joy. It's a choice. And then we take that into how we live our lives. Jesus said to his disciples, he said, ask in my name. And he was speaking from that Christ consciousness. And so ask in the name of the Christ consciousness, or in the name of the beloved. And when you center yourself and you ask from that energy and from that space, guess what? Your joy will be a river overflowing its banks. I mean, can you get that image? When you live from that presence, your joy will be a river that is flooding. It just goes on and on and on. And so let me ask you, would it be okay with you if your life got easier? Yes. Pretty unanimous. Another question, would it be okay if you had more joy in your life? Yeah. Regardless of what's going on, in the midst of whatever it is that you're experiencing, joy is staring us in the face most of the time, but we don't see it because we're just too darn busy. Have you noticed your ego, your local self, your personality is always worrying and rushing and striving and pushing and trying so hard to live life that any chance of joy, any possible chance of joy, is pushed right out of your life because we push so hard to do it. Wayne Muller wrote a wonderful book, How Then Shall We Live? And he's a minister and a therapist. And in this book, How Then Shall We Live, he shares stories about people who he's talked to, counseled with, or taught in retreats or classes. And there's one story that really jumped out at me. As I was preparing this talk for today, I thought, I've got to use that story. And it's about a man named Jack. He's a middle-aged man who comes to Wayne for counseling. And Jack is at a point in his life when he's feeling very depressed, very empty, very frustrated. And Jack had always had this dream of being a successful, well-known, well-compensated artist. And he lived during a time where the artistic myth was the image of a hard-driving, hard-working, very eccentric, usually hard-drinking, struggling, fighting artist that never quite made it. And Jack lived out this picture. He wasn't the successful, famous painter that he felt he should be, and because of that, he was very angry. And in order to pay his bills, he became a teacher at the college level, teaching art and painting. And he came to Wayne because he was depressed. What he really wanted in life wasn't happening, and he needed some guidance. And I loved Wayne's observations, and I loved the questions that he asked of Jack. Wayne, in essence, said to Jack, I noticed two very distinct ways of being in you. I see in you the struggling, frustrated, disappointed, and discouraged artist that didn't make it the way you thought you were going to make it. And I also see in you this incredible art teacher. I happen to know that students specifically seek you out as their instructor because you have a way of being with them. You help your students find the best in themselves. And when Jack painted, Wayne said, he would quiet himself down. He would listen to how the color, the shape, the line spoke to him, following the brush as it sought out the spaces between things. He listened for the tiniest indication of what was required, what paint was necessary. And he taught this to his students. Be easy, he would teach his students. Let the colors tell you where they want to go. Painting and teaching were joyful and easy. But as soon as Jack tried to push and grind and force the world to recognize the great artist, he felt miserable. And so Wayne posed this question to Jack. What if? What if you were to allow yourself to live your life and your career in the same way that you teach painting to your students? to push less and to allow what is necessary to emerge from the canvas of each day. You know, I love that last line. I think it's delicious. You know, to push less. You know, what if I pushed less? You know, it's a question we need to all ask ourselves. What if I pushed less and I allowed what is necessary to emerge from the canvas of each day? You know, how often do we find ourselves worrying, rushing, trying, and pushing? You know, what if we gave ourselves permission to stop pushing? I don't know about you, but I love that idea. That really appeals to me. To not push so hard to make things happen. You know, it doesn't mean that I don't want to get things done. I just want to do them in a different way. Don't you? Than what this world tells us we have to do. Push and strive and struggle but to be easy. To be easy. To not push so hard. To me, that's delightful. It's kind of, you can just go, you know, and kind of sink into it. And so, what we're looking at in this 7-week program is a new way of being, that we don't have to push so hard, that we learn some meditation techniques and we begin to really go into our inner sanctuary, make that a habit that we just do and don't even have to think about it. It's who we are. It's reconnecting with the beloved. That's our priority. You know, Barbara Marx Hubbard in Emergence gives us great exercises and journal exercises to do and great practical things to do each week. And so in meditation, you know, we spend time in the inner sanctuary and we get to this place of just pure bliss, right? But then we get up and we go out into the world and we try to get things accomplished separated from that blissful experience that we just had with our essential self, with the beloved. And so the key here, the trick is to spend as much time as possible in the inner sanctuary, in the presence of the beloved, and then take that blissful experience out into what it is that you're doing in the world. Don't leave it back there in your meditation time. Bring it out with you. Bring it to work. Take it, you know, home with you while you're driving the kids to football practice, when you're cooking dinner. All of your life, you keep that blissful experience of your oneness with the beloved. Because the truth is, as you lift yourself up, everyone else around you is lifted up. And so in this week's reading, Barbara Marx Hubbard talks about a rose chamber, a sacred chamber of the heart. And she describes it as a chamber that's deeper inside your inner sanctuary. So in meditation this week, you're going to practice being in your inner sanctuary, but also finding a deeper chamber, deeper within your heart, that is filled with a rose-colored light, that is that love, that is the truth of who you are. And you reside in that place, in that rose chamber that she calls the rose chamber of union of the human and the divine. And so you want to bring your humanity and your divinity together. You don't want to just do away with your humanity. That's important. You want to unite them. You want to bring them into union. And she writes in Emergence, in this new space, she writes about this experience. In this new space, I experienced a glowing rose-colored light. And as I remained in this chamber, this light gently permeated the density of my body, infusing every part. The unconditional love of the beloved embraced me so deeply that there was no fear, no anxiety, nothing but light and bliss and joy. And the longer we stay in the rose chamber, the more wonderful becomes the rest of our day. A glow from the rose chamber lingers on, infusing daily life with an all-pervading joy. The local selves purr like kittens. They want more of it. And she goes on to say that the longer we stay in this rose chamber of union, the more sustainable becomes the native state of happiness. Isn't that great? So the more we can stay in this place of union, the more sustainable becomes our joy and our happiness. Now, in unity, we would call this state the kingdom of heaven. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is where? Within you. Again, it's that chamber, that sanctuary within you. It's not out there somewhere. It's a consciousness of ever-expanding, ever-increasing good that is within you. And we experience it in the rose chamber of union between the human and divine. And it's a blissful state. Joy and heaven are our natural states of being. It's naturally who we are. And so this blissful union we need to practice cultivating. We need to really begin to be very comfortable with it. And our ego and our personality and our local selves are not, we don't do away with them in the union of the beloved. No, they become more productive because now they're expressing without separation. They're expressing without having to control everything and having to struggle. And what we're expressing more of is our essential divine self. I think it was in week 2, I talked about when you're feeling separation, when you're beginning to feel a separation in consciousness from your beloved essential self. And you'll know you're going into separation if you feel tension, stress, anxiety, fear, worry, anger, all that stuff. You know you're beginning to separate in consciousness from your beloved, from the essential self. And so what you do in that case is just stop. Take a deep breath and then focus on the beloved. 3 easy steps. You just got to remember to do it. So when you're beginning feeling anxious or scared or fearful or angry, just stop. 3 steps. Stop, take a deep breath, and just go back on focusing on the beloved. Go back into that inner sanctuary. You can, in your mind, just in a minute you can be there. And then take that out into the world. Remember to connect. Because remember, what we focus on, what? We get more of. So focus on the beloved. You know, our inner state of being is our choice. It's a choice you make. You choose to be joyful or you choose to be in fear. Our inner state is our choice. There's a wonderful book called Joy is My Compass. It's written by a good friend of mine, Alan Cohen. And in the book, Alan asks a friend of his how he makes important decisions. And his friend says to Alan, joy is my compass. Don't you love that? Joy is my compass. And he goes on to say, whenever I have a choice to make, I ask myself, which alternative makes me feel the most joyful? Then I try each of the choices on for size. And usually there is one that feels lighter, freer, more like the real me. It feels like coming home. Then I know that's the direction God wants me to go. And so, isn't that a great way to live? With a joy compass? You know, people all the time say to me, how do I know it's the right decision? And I go, well, how does it feel? Which way what feels better to you? You know, take and try it on and go with what brings you great joy. Because when there's joy, you know you're in sync with God. And so the outer world is but a mirror of our inner life. Take a deep breath with that one. Your outer world is a mirror of your inner life. And you can't get away from it. Can't get away from it. And The answers that you seek begin and end with none other than your own self. You're the one who has all the answers. And so begin to spend more and more time in that rose chamber of the human and the divine, of that union of human and divine. Spend time in that inner sanctuary. And if you want to find that self, discover that self and follow the path of joy.